Welcome on this Microsoft Power BI tutorial. In this video, I will show you how to use data preparation tools of Microsoft Power BI, particularly the query editor. For the outline, number 1, we'll talk about the query editor interface. Number 2, data source connection. Number 3, table transformation tools. Number 4, date, text, number, specific tools. And number 5, conditional columns, groupings, and aggregation. Let's start by opening the Microsoft Power BI desktop. Click the File button. Select Options and Settings. Click Options. Under the Preview Features, make sure that everything is unchecked. For the data load, uncheck Auto Detect New Relationships. And lastly, for the regional settings, select English United States. Click OK button. Let us save the file. Click File, Save As. Let's save this as Power BI Data Preparation Project. For this demo, we will be using 5 CSV files from AdventureWorks database, starting with AdventureWorks Calendar, next AdventureWorks Customers, AdventureWorks Products, AdventureWorks Returns, and AdventureWorks Territories. To start with, click Get Data button. Select Text CSV. So we will import the 5 CSV files and then we will implement the query editor. Select Data Source. And let me begin with AdventureWorks Calendar. And then click Open. Upon selecting the file, you will have a preview of your dataset. And this is what we have. The data starts from January 1, 2015 and ends up to June 30, 2017. Down below, you have 2 options. When you click the Load button, the data will be loaded in the data model. When you click Transform Data, it will redirect into the query editor interface. In the meantime, let me click the Load button. Later, we will try to edit the data using the query editor. It will load for a while. There you go. We have here the AdventureWorks calendar table. Next, let us import another CSV file. So click Get Data, Text CSV, select AdventureWorks Customers, and then click Open button. This time we have the list of the customers with the following details. Again, you have 2 buttons down below. Let me choose Load button, and we will edit the customer table later. Alright, so to preview what we have for the customer table, we can click on the data ribbon, select the customer's data, And as you can see in the status bar below, we have 18,148 unique rows in this table. That means we have 18,148 customers in this table. Moving on, let me go back to Home tab, click Get Data, text CSV. Let me select the products table. Click Open button. Here we have the preview of our products database. Click Load button. And as you can see, on this data view, we have the products information database. And as you can see in the status bar, we have 293 unique products. Okay. AdventureWorks is a bicycle company wherein we offer different kinds of bike products. Next, let me go to Get Data one more time. Click Text CSV and then import the returns table. Click Open and then click the Load button. Alright, so this returns table reflects on the returns transaction for AdventureWorks company. So for the past 2.5 years, we have this list of 1,809 records, which means we have this number of records of returns for AdventureWorks. Lastly, let me go back to Get Data. Click Text CSV and select AdventureWorks territories. AdventureWorks has 10 different branches. We have here the region, column, the country, and the continent. Let's click the Load button. Right after we import all the tables we need in this Power BI report, we can actually go back to the query editor and apply some data transformation tools. So in order to do that, you can click the Home tab and then point into Transform Data button. Select Transform Data. And as you can see, we have two windows open when you click the Power BI icon down below. The one on the left is the data model view, where you have the report, the data view, and the relationship view. Next, the second window is what we call the query editor view. So before we start with data transformation, let us examine first the available controls and command buttons. From the top, we have here the Home tab, and it includes the following commands. Most of the commands are table transformation tools, like for example, removing columns, removing rows, and other common transformation tools. Next, we have here the Transform tab. Transform tab is also divided into different sections. Transform tab is used to modify an existing column or selected column in your table. The third tab is the Add column. Add column can display additional column in your table based on your preference. So add column can be a text format, number format, or date format. Now, going back to Home tab, Let us examine the data source settings. You can click data source settings, and here you can find 5 items which represents the process of importing each CSV file. So whether the data came from an SQL, CSV, Excel, all of those transactions are recorded over here. Now, if you get your data locally and you try to change the file name or the folder name, it will not reflect automatically in this data source settings. Therefore, you need to go back here, click the change source, and then browse for the new file location or folder location. By then, you click the close button, and then Power BI will just update automatically. Next, let me simply apply some of the table transformation tools. Let me start with the AdventureWorks calendar. Examine what we have here. As you can see, we have a single column named date. But when you look on the right side, you can simply look into the applied steps. Power BI initiates some commands to provide this column. To start with, when you click the source, this is the original format of your table. Date is part of the record. The header name is column 1. The data type is ABC. However, Power BI recognized this. That's why it actually adds promoted headers and a change type step. So which means at the end of these 3 steps, Power BI converted this column into date format without us doing it manually. Now, Power BI is also capable doing this in multiple columns. If you try to look in the next table, Power BI recognized the correct column data type for each field in the customers table. Alright, it's better you still check this one and look into the data types just to make sure that you are using a correct data type for your table. Right? So you can look into other tables, double check to find if Power BI recognized the correct data type. Next, in the query editor, you need to identify 2 types of tables. Number 1, we have what we call the lookup tables, or what we call the dimension tables. Number 2, we have the data tables, or what we call the fact tables. So, one of the characteristics of lookup table is that the data inside the tables are unique. And the characteristics of a data table, some of the records are duplicated, or we call them the transactions table. So let me identify which one is the lookup table here and which one is the data table. Start with this calendar table. Let me update the name. This is AdventureWorks _ calendar _ lookup. You can change the table name when you go on the rightmost area of your query editor. Adding a lookup term will guide me whenever I want to use this table as reference in my data analysis expressions. Next, customer table here is also a lookup table because it only includes unique reference of each customer. Next, products table here is also a lookup table. Let me update the table name. Next, returns table here is a data table. So when we say data table, again, this is a representation of a transaction table. Some commands are repeated. Some records are repeated. And you can see multiple foreign keys. Next, the last table here, territories. This is a lookup table as well. So why query editor is important, and what is the significance of using this menu? First, in query editor, we can apply data transformation. We can simply apply data shaping and data formatting before we forward this data set into our Power BI reports. To give you some examples of application on the side of the table transformation, let me start with the calendar lookup table. As you can see in this example, we only have one column, and this represents records from January 1, 2015 up to June 30, 2017. If I want to see the last available record, all I need to do is to click the drop-down button, select the descending button, and then I can look into the last available record in this table. You will also notice that each command that you will apply will be recorded on your applied step. Let's remove it. Now, moving on. Since we have here a date column, let me create a calendar table. I want to add more analysis for my transaction date column. In order for me to do that, I can simply click on the date column, click on the add column tab, and find the date button. Under the date button, we can choose the following items. Now, if I need to add more analysis on my calendar lookup, let me start by selecting the year option, wherein I can simply select the year button, and immediately Power BI will add a column that displays the year of the given date. So since this is up to 2017, my expectation when I click the drop-down list, I have here a filter that contains 2015, 2016, and 2017. Next, let me add more details. Going back to date column, select date button. We have here the month option. Now for the month option, we can choose month, and this month will display the month number equivalent of the given date. So if January, we're expecting 1. If 12, we are expecting up to December. So when you click the drop-down list, it contains 1 to 12 in this column. Next, let's add more details by selecting the date column. Select the date data, month, and then let's look at the start of month. So the start of month represents, that's for the month of January, we have January 1, 2015. For the month of February, we have February 1, 2015, and so on. Now, moving on. By the way, make sure that you are selecting a date column before you apply the next step. In case you are selecting a month column here that is in number data type, one thing that you will notice, date is disabled. So let me go back to date, add column. Now, the last item I would like for the month is the name of month. Let me click on that one. Now, Power BI will initiate a column that displays the month name in this table. Month name that includes January to December. Alright? So unlike in different applications, Power Query or the query editor can simply help us to automate the task. Alright? And also, each steps are recorded, so I can be guided on which particular column is already added. Moving on, let me go back to date. Let's add more details. Let's click on the date. Let's move on the quarter. So let's add the quarter of the year, which means January to March is quarter 1. October to December is quarter number 4. Click on that one. So there you go. It has 4 outputs displaying quarter 1 to quarter number 4. Okay, going back, let me go back to date, add more details. Let's click on the week and let's use the start of week. It will display the start of week for each particular date given. If I click start of week, December 28, 2014 is the Sunday or the start of week of January 1, 2015. Okay, now let me add 2 more details for this one. Select the date and move into day, and let us select day of week. Day of week will display any number from 0 to 6, displaying the value of 0 for Sunday up to 6, which means Saturday. And lastly, let me add 1 more column, selecting the date for the day, and let us select the name of day. Right? When you click name of day, so we have this specific details of day name, right? Based on the given date. January 1 is exactly Thursday. Okay. Now, one good thing about the query editor is that the next time I have a new data set for the calendar, let's say I have records of July 1, 2017 up to the present date, February 18, 2022. All I need to do is to update the data in my data source. I can overwrite this file. Then let me go back to Power BI Query Editor. Under Home tab, click the Refresh All button. Power BI will repeat all the applied steps given in this table, starting from the source up to inserted day name. Bottom line is that you don't need to repeat the same step every time there's a new date coming in your database. So just click the refresh button. Now Power BI will update this calendar table. If we're done modifying the table, we can actually forward this to our data model. So our next step is to click the Home tab, select the Close and Apply button, which means it will close the editor, but it will forward all the changes into our data model. Selecting Close and Apply, we'll move it back to the data model view. Now, the next time I go back to data, click on calendar table. Now, calendar table includes the additional columns. The same way I can use them later for my dashboard. So calendar includes the column. And also in the relationships tab, AdventureWorks calendar contains multiple columns. Next, let's add more details. This time, let me modify the customers table. So let us go back into the transform data under home tab and then click transform data button. So it will reopen the query editor. Now, let us move into the next table. And let us try to clean up some of our data in the customer database. Okay, to start with, let me continue with a date formatted approach. And I have here a birth date column that needs to be used to create a age column. So this will be my reference in order to find the age of each customer. How do we do that? Select the birth date column, click the Add Column tab, select the Date button, and then click on the Age button. Power BI will add an age column that will calculate the number of days between the birth date up to the current date. Alright? One thing that you will notice also in this column, the data type is duration. Therefore, if you want this to convert in not by number of days but number of years, you can simply transform this table. And this time, instead of add column, let me try to use the transform tab. Again, the difference between add column and transform tab, we use this to modify existing column in different aspect, whether if the column is in date format, in number format, or in text format. Since the current data is in date and time format, let me click transform tab and then select the duration button on the right side. And then let us choose the total years option. So what will Power BI will do, it will update this column instead of number of days, total number of years. Okay. Next, let us change the total number of decimal places by selecting the age column, transform tab, and let us use the rounding option. Click the round button and let us use 2 decimal places for the age. Typing 2 decimal places, click OK button. So we have it. This is the age of the customer. Anytime you want to change or update the current decimal places, you can always go back to your applied step. We have here the gear icon. Select that and you can change the number of decimal places. Next. Before I go to the next step, let me just discuss something about the sequence of the applied steps. One thing that you need to prevent, especially if you are in the query editor applied steps, make sure that the selected steps is the last available step. If you select the applied steps in between, something like this, and then you attempt to add a basic transform or any command in that column, Power BI will initialize a warning and it says that, are you sure you want to insert a step? Inserting an intermediate step may affect subsequent steps, which could cause your query to break. So it doesn't make sense to add a specific applied step in between the current applied step. If you pursue with this, it will actually affect all the subsequent steps in this applied step. So please do not do that. Make sure that you select the last applied step before you add another transform or add column steps. Okay, moving on. Let me go to the text formatted tools. Let me begin by displaying the full name of the customer. So I have here the prefix, the first name, and the last name of each customer. And my objective is to display the full name of each customer. Now, in order for me to do that, let me select prefix, first name, and then last name, holding the control button and selecting the data using the mouse. After doing that, let me click on the Add Column tab and then select the Merge Columns. Merge Columns under text category will allow me to concatenate prefix, first name, and last name column. Let me select the separator by choosing the space. And then for the new column name, let me type here full name. And by the way, if you want to display the data based on last name and then first name, make sure that upon selection, you start with the last name and then the first name. In this example, final output that we are expecting, it will display the full name starting on the prefix, first name, and then the last name. That said, let me click OK button. Now Power BI adds a column that displays the full name of each customer. Next, I need to convert this data into proper case, which means capitalize each word. So how do we do that? Select the full name. Then, under Add Column, as you can see, we have here the Format tab. Here you can change the formats. However, take note that you are in the Add column. Therefore, the solution of any buttons in the Add column will always add a column in your table. So we don't want to use the format adding the same list of full name, but just displaying a different format keys. Much better if you try to click on the Transform tab. Transform tab also has a Format button. And under Format, we can choose Capitalized each word button. You can click on this one. Now Power BI will transform the data. It will capitalize each word inside the full name column. Next, moving on. What else for the text data? How about the complete opposite of merge column, wherein our main objective is to split the data. And I have here the email address column, wherein we can implement the split column procedure. So let me explain two types of solution here. Number one, you can use the add column. We have here the extract. However, the main output of add column, it will preserve the original email address. It will just add two columns that will display the username and then the domain. If you don't want a duplicate email addresses columns, you can simply select the email address. You go back to the Transform tab and then select the Split Column button. When you click the Split Column, you have a lot of options under this button. Okay, we have here one of the most popular option, the by delimiter option, which means you can specify a character and use that as a column separator. In this example for the email address, it is very obvious that we can use the @ symbol to separate the username and the domain name of the email address. Because any character that is displayed before the @ symbol is considered as username. Any data after the @ symbol is considered as the domain name. If you want to apply other ways to split the data, we have several options down below. Let me begin with by delimiter. By delimiter, let me select custom, and then at symbol is already there. If you have multiple instance of your data for at symbol, you can look into other options over here. Okay. In the meantime, we don't need to change anything. Let me click the OK button. Right, now Power BI will remove the at symbol. Well, it will use the at symbol as a column separator between the username and the domain name. If you're done, you can actually look into the header, update. This is username. Update this one. This is the domain name. Okay, now for the domain name, let me clean up this column by removing the dashed symbol, converting each word into capitalize each word, and removing the .com word in this table. Okay, to start with, if I need to convert this to capitalize each word, let me click the transform tab, select the format, select capitalized each word. Okay, number 2, if I need to remove the dashed symbol in between, the best way to do that, you can find transform tab, we have there the replaced value. But there's a shortcut actually. You can right click in the column and then select replaced values. Replaced value to find is dash, replaced with none, click OK. Next, let us highlight the domain name, right click, replaced values. Take note that the replaced values is case sensitive. If I want to remove .com and I just type in .com with small letter C, next time I click the OK button, will not do anything here. Okay, if I want to remove the .com, I need to go back to the settings. Make sure that I'm following the correct format keys. Let me type capital C instead of small letter C. Click OK. It will remove the .com in the domain name. Right, so we have the username, and next we have the domain name. Alright, so these are some examples of text-related specific tools in Microsoft Power BI. Now, how about for the products? And this time, let me implement a number specific tools. To start with, let me go to the rightmost column. And my objective is to include a column for the discounted price. Discounted price is equivalent to a 10% less value of the given product price column. So in order to execute a discounted price, you can click the column of product price, select the add column tab, and we have here the standard button for the number related transaction. When you click that, you can see here some familiar commands for number datasets. Let us click the multiply button. And in order for me to display the discounted price less than 10%, I need to multiply this column by 0.9. Click OK. It will display the discounted column. Let me change the header, and this is discounted price. Next, I need to apply another number specific tools transformation by changing the number of decimal of product cost, product price, and discounted price. I can do it simultaneously by selecting product cost, product price, and discounted price. You click the transform tab, rounding, round, and then click or type 2 decimal places. Click OK. It will display 2 decimal places. Another way to apply a number specific tools is with the use of the transform tab. This time with a sample of an aggregate function. Let's say, for example, you want to know how many unique product color do we have out of these 293 records of products. So in order to check the number of unique product color, select the product color tab. Under transform tab, you can find the statistics tool, and you have here several options of an aggregated function. Let's click the count distinct values. Alright, now Power BI will recognize we have 10 unique number of unique color in that products table. However, we cannot, of course, continue with this one. So might as well we need to remove the applied step. We are just using the aggregate function under transform statistics tool in order for us to verify the value. Okay, so we will not continue with that. Make sure that you remove that applied step. All right, so one more thing I would like to do for the products column. Let me go to the product size column. Let me go to the product style column. All right, we're talking about data cleaning, and as you can see here, we have a 0, and the rest is number dataset. Okay, now I want to update this table or column. If I need to update that, I can simply right click and then select replaced values. That instead of 0 must be NA or not available. Click OK. Now NA will be used as a replacement. And why do we need to replace it? So that we are just using the same data type for the entire column. 0 is a number format. The rest is in text format. So might as well you make it uniform by just changing the number value 0 into a text format NA. Alright, so far we have applied date specific tools, number specific tools, and text specific tools. Let me move on. The next item I would like to add here is to display the conditional column. So when we say conditional column, it will help us to display a substitute value based on a current condition. To start with, I have here a AdventureWorks returns data. And this AdventureWorks returns data reflects all the returns product by customer from year 2015 up to year 2017. The last column here is the return quantity. It includes two classification, number 1 and number 2. Number 1 means single item, and number 2 means multiple items. I want to add that kind of comment in this column right after return quantity. Now, how do we do that? Let me click the Add Column tab. And under Add Column tab, we can simply look into the Conditional Column button. Select Conditional Column. Next, we can change the custom name. Custom name is status. Next, return quantity. We have equals to 1, means single item. Add clause. Return quantity greater than or equal to 2, means multiple items. And lastly, for the else, you need to type NE. Right? So conditional column is a very user-friendly interface wherein we just need to fill it up with the conditions that we want to implement. Unlike in other platforms that you need to create formulas manually and you need to count the total number of parentheses if you need to close each equation. In this query editor, it helps us to add more column in the table based on a condition or criteria. So if we're done, let us click the OK button. Now, Power BI will add a column that will display either if the data is in single item or multiple item status. All right, let's have one more example by selecting the customers lookup table. Now, in the customers lookup table, let me move into the annual income column. And we will be adding multiple range of status of income level. So for the range, I'll be using a 50,000 interval, starting with greater than or equal to 150,001, which means very high, 100,001 high, 50,001 average. Anything that is less than or equal to 50,000 is low, else NA. So how do we do that? Select the annual income, click add column. Next, conditional column. Let us name this column as income level. In the column name, select annual income greater than or equal to the value of 150,001. For the output, this is very high. Add clause, annual income greater than or equal to 100,000, 100,001. This is high. Add clause, annual income greater than or equal to 50,001. This is average. And lastly, add clause, annual income, anything that is less than or equal to 50,000. This is low. Lastly, for the else, you type NA. Alright, so this time we have more conditions. And by the way, on the right side, you can see we have here an ellipsis wherein we can move in different places the conditions that we've created, or you can simply delete them. Every time you need to add clause, you can always click the add clause button over here. Alright, we're good. Let's click OK button. Now Power BI will add an income level column that can identify or group the customers based on their income level. If in case you have a new income level, you can always go back to the gear icon, select that gear icon, and update the components of your if condition. Right, so we will not change anything about it. We're good. This the output. And so far, we've created a report that will display the income level of each customer. Now, the last thing I would like to demo here is the application of grouping and aggregation. So before we go to that, let me insert a topic that will help us to display data based on description. So here's my objective. In my returns data, we have 1,809 rows of records. Then I need to create a report based on a group of territory information and also based on product information. So the problem here, however, is that we only have a territory key and a product key equivalent data. Now I want to display, instead of territory key, I need to know the exact country name of each territory key. On the product key, I need to know what is the exact product name of the given product number. So to start with, let me apply what we call a merge queries. Right after we have the product name and the country name, we can start with the groupings and aggregation. So for the territory key, you can click into the Home tab. Inside the Home tab, on the right side, you have the Merge Queries. And we have several options for this. When you say Merge Queries, it will apply Merge Queries within this table. Merge Queries as new, it will add a new query list or new query in this area of your query list. So let's start by selecting the merge queries. Then we have here the returns table. Now, in order for me to merge the query, I need to find the match on a specific table. Since we are looking for the match of the territory key, let us select this column. And obviously, I need to match this in the territories lookup. So I have both territory key and sales territory key. By selecting both of them, it allows me to match the data on the returns table. This process is what we call a join kind method. In Microsoft Excel, we have the counterpart. We call this VLOOKUP function. If you want to change the join kind, you have a lot of options here down below. You can also adjust the configuration by adding fuzzy matching options, which includes the case sensitivity of the data that you are matching. In the meantime, I didn't change anything on that note, so I have the matches. Then let me click the OK button. Now we're not done yet. Power BI includes a column, but what I want is the country name equivalent of each territory key. If I need to look up that, let me click the icon on the right side and check everything here and select the country column. Alright? Actually, you can check multiple columns. In the meantime, let us select country. Click OK. Now, Power BI recognized that each territory key has a equivalent country level. If you try to look, it says that this is territory key number 9 and it's equivalent to Australia. If I go back to territories lookup, territory key number 9 is Australia. If I want to add the continent of the Pacific, I can go back in the applied step of my returns data table, select or check the continent, and then click the OK button. You can actually add multiple columns, getting data from your lookup tables. Okay, so let me remove the continent. I think this is not necessary since I have the country column. In the same way, I need to do that step in the product key column so that we can look into the exact equivalent product name of each product key. So how do we do this? Select the product key column. Next, click Add Column tab. Home tab. Merge queries. Let's find the match of the product key. Of course, that's under products lookup table. Selecting both product key, click OK button. Next, we can select all the columns of the product table. However, we just need a product name. By the way, make sure that you always uncheck this checkbox down below. It says that use original column name as prefix. What will happen if I didn't uncheck this? Let me show you. If I click OK, the name of the table or the column is the entire name of the table, products, lookup, and then you still have the column subname, which is the product name. So in order for us to minimize this, let me repeat the step. By removing the applied step, selecting the icon again, uncheck everything except the product name. If you didn't check the prefix, it will just display product name or the column name of this field. Alright? So I find this more useful instead of adding prefix. We just need to add prefix if we assume that we have a multiple column name from the other table. But if not, you can stick by using the default product name. Alright, so far we have the country column and we have the product name column. Therefore, we can apply the grouping and aggregation. Let me show you the process of grouping and aggregation. To start with, you can click the Transform tab. And under Transform tab, you have here the Group By button. Okay, so what's the purpose of using the Group By button? Let's say, for example, you need to know the total number of returns per country. So you have here two types of Group By. Number one for basic, number two for advanced. Basic can only handle one table at a time. Advanced can handle multiple tables at a time. Let us select basic, change this into country. Now for the new column name, this is total returns. For the operation, that is summation. And for the column, that's return quantity. Let me click OK button. Alright, now Power BI will do something like this. It will display the unique countries available. Next, it will create a total value out of 1,809 records. These are the breakdown of returns per country. I can simply migrate this to the data model and use this as my report. Okay, you can also arrange this from highest to lowest by selecting descending in the filter so that we can simply understand which particular country we have the most number of returns. Okay, let me remove the sorted rows and the group rows. And let me try to use the advanced option of the Group By method. By selecting the Transform tab, Group By, I have here the advanced. And the difference between advanced and basic, advanced can handle multiple criteria. To start with, let me choose country. I can add a grouping. The grouping is product name. Let me change the aggregation name. This is total returns. Next, summation for the return quantity. Alright, let me click OK button. Now, looking at this table, we have two sets of criteria. So in order to understand this, let me select the country column, sort it alphabetical order. Then we can simply look into all transaction of Australia, product name, and the total returns in that kind of condition. Right after Australia, we have the list of all products for Canada, and so on up to the next list of the available countries. So bottom line is this. We are using the group by button if in case we're dealing with a very large scale table based on column. So let's say you have 100 columns database and you just need to use maybe 2 or 3 columns out of that 100 columns. You can simplify them with the group by button. Okay. Now, one disadvantage of using this feature is that some columns cannot be used anymore. Example, as you can see, we don't have the return date. If I click on the applied steps change type, that's one of the original column available in this table. All right. So that's one thing that we need to consider if later on we need to use return informations by date data. Make sure that you exclude that column, or you may add criteria based on date information. Now, lastly, I would like to add a tool that can help us to analyze the data before we use the data preparation application. And let me go back to the customers lookup table. Now, my objective is to scan all available columns in this table. Okay. Some items that I would like to verify whether we have a valid column, a blank column, or maybe an error column. How can we identify that? All you need to do is to click the view button. And under the view button, we have all the options that we need. Number 1, we have the column quality. You can check on this one. When you check column quality, it will help us to identify which column contains valid, error, or empty cell references. So I don't need to filter anymore the table to see whether I have this kind of messages or data. Another tool that you can use is the column distribution. Column distribution will help us analyze the level of available data, all right, in this table. Right? So we can see two types of comment in this column distribution. Number 1, we have here the unique, and number 2, we have the distinct. Okay, so what's the difference between the two? So when we need unique, it doesn't duplicate in the records of the table. While distinct means there are some duplicate values of the same data for a distinct value data. Example here in the education level, it says that we don't have any unique records, but we have 5 distinct, which means if you click the filter, you can see that we have here bachelor's, graduate degree, high school, partial college, and partial high school. Those are the available options for this. Okay, lastly, if you want to analyze this, you can simply check the column profile. Right? Column profile will just give us the picture of the overview of the education level data. So we have here sample data of 1,000 records, and you can browse or hover which particular data of bachelor's, partial college, graduate degree high school, and partial high school, displaying the percentage proportion equivalent to 100% value. So you can check this anytime. If you're done, you can click the Home tab. And the last step is to click the Close and Apply button. When you click Close and Apply, all the changes that we've made in the query editor will now be forwarded inside the data model. We load for a while. You can click the data view, and under the data view, you can look into the available columns for each table. So it adds all the columns that we've created in the query editor. For example, in the customer, we have the full name column. We also have the income level. Next, in the products table, we have the discounted price. Returns table, we have here the group and aggregated data. And we also have the territories. We didn't change anything inside the territories, but it's still available. All right. Anytime I need to change or update something in my table, we can always go back to the query editor by selecting the Home tab and then Transform Data. Okay. Selecting Transform Data will allow me to go back, will allow me to fine-tune some of the applied steps needed, and click Close and Apply to reflect this in my data model. Again, going back to the advantage, why do we need to use the query editor in the first place? As I mentioned earlier, it automates the rest of the command that we've created. If we encounter this type of commands every day, like removing dashed symbol, formatting text into uppercase, adding multiplication values, all of them are now available in the applied steps. And also, all you need to do is to update your data source. If you have new sets of customers, you can overwrite this. New sets of dates for the calendar, additional products, additional returns to the transaction, and new branches of the company or the territories. When you update anything in this data source folder, you go back to your Power BI. Then under the Home tab of the query editor, select Refresh All. Okay, it will refresh all available tables in the query editor, and you close and apply, all the changes will be forwarded to your data model. And that's it for the data preparation using the query editor in this Microsoft Power BI tutorial. Do not forget to click the like and subscribe button.